Hello, and welcome to Almost Alumni Week Alumni Panel. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really looking forward to the conversation ahead. My name is Molly Glevy. I work in the Alumni Relations Office here at Hamline, and I am going to share just a bit of information about what we're going to do together this morning, and then introduce our panelists and participants. So before we get started, as you probably all know at this point in our Zoom life, you'll be muted and your camera will be off for today's presentation. If you have a question for our speakers, any one of our speakers, please go ahead and use the Q&A icon in your Zoom dashboard on your screen. And if you have any questions about the logistics or anything like that, you can use the chat icon. We'll find your questions wherever you drop them in. So please go ahead and do that. Don't worry, put questions in or things to share anytime throughout the presentation. You don't feel like you have to wait to any certain time. This is going to be very conversational. And then we are celebrating Almost Alumni Week right now in the Alumni Relations Office for our graduating class of 21. So a few different things to know about Almost Alumni Week. If you update your non-Hamline email address, so the one that you plan to use most after you graduate, anytime this week, you'll be entered into a drawing. And if you go on our website, or if you pay attention to your emails this week, you'll see more information about how to do that. Follow Hamline Alumni Instagram for more chances to win prizes. Like I said, watch for emails throughout the week for more information about prizes, but then also resources available to you as Hamline alumni. And then everybody who participates today will get in the mail a Hamline tax stickers. They're very nice. And you'll also be entered into a drawing for prizes. So watch your email next week for more information about that. And then after today, if you have questions about alumni relations or the alumni network or anything we've really talked about today, please go ahead and email alum@hamline.edu. And then my assumption is many of you might have questions about commencement, and those questions can be directed to commencement@hamline.edu. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and our panelists will start turning their cameras on. Hello, everybody. All right. So before I introduce our panelists, I want to introduce Lindsay Bernardi, who is our student worker in the Alumni Relations Office and also Vice President of the Student Alumni Board. Hi, Lindsay. Lindsay and I are going to be moderating today's panel and answering and posing questions to our panelists. Let's see. And then I'm going to go ahead and get started introducing our panelists. So first off, we have Dave Fryer. Dave is a chemistry alum from the class of 1979 and worked as manufacturing and business services manager at 3M and is currently retired. Lindsay, you're up next.
Next, we have Brent Gustafsson. He graduated from Hamline in 1994 with majors in political science and social studies and is currently the CFO of the College of Liberal Arts at the U of M. Next is Chris Keller, who graduated in 1986 from Hamline with a degree in international business, and again in 1989 with her Juris Doctor degree, so went to law school. And she is currently the Senior Continuous Improvement Manager at CHS Inc.
Next up, we have Dee Lucas, class of 2011, graduated with a degree in psychology. Dee works as the Epic Accounts Manager at SureScripts. Joe Sathy, class of 2013, graduate with degrees in history and political science, currently is an associate at Kennedy and Graven Law Firm and is the president of Hamline CLA Alumni Board. And last but not least, we have Micah Taylor, who graduated in 2015 with a political science degree and currently works at Carleton College as the assistant director of new student activities and new student orientation. So thanks to all of our panelists for being here and helping us answer questions for seniors. I'm going to start us off with the first question. What do you wish you would have known in the first week or month of your first job after graduation? Chris, do you want to start us off with that one?
Sure, Molly. Well, I think the one thing that we all want to do is not feel embarrassed, right? So the thought is, I can't let people know that I'm nervous, or I can't let people know that I don't know. But in all honesty, a curious mindset and a learning agility is actually a significant quality. It's not a weakness. And it's good for both the employer and for you. It's always interesting to me to see how many people may be in the room who've been there a long time, but are afraid to ask the question. And the new person in the room who asked the question actually benefits more than themselves. They benefit everybody else in the room. So don't feel like it's embarrassing not to know. Ask the question. That's how you learn.
Brent, how about you? What do you wish you would have known those first weeks, months on a new job?
Sure. Thanks, Molly. I just want to say at the outset, I probably speak for my fellow alums here. My hat's off to our current set of Hamlin students and the challenges you've been through in the last year, a set of experiences that so vastly different from what you desired and what any of us experienced. So just immense respect and appreciation for what you've gone through, and eyeing the finish line in a way very different than you had probably desired, but just a lot of respect for the ability to keep going and engage with your academic work through an incredibly disruptive time. So I just want to acknowledge that at the start of this, and wish you all well in the coming months here as you wrap things up. As I think back to early on in sort of starting jobs, the thing that I think is important to keep in mind is it's probably not your dream job. Wasn't for me. For many people, it's not the dream job, but that's okay. Kind of what Chris is talking about, that curiosity. But even if it's not your dream job, don't be eyeing the exit as soon as you start. Don't be so anxious to leave that you miss the opportunity to learn. You can learn from any place you're at, any position you're in. And the other thing that I think I found or realized maybe later than I wanted to is look around you and find those people that you respect and model your behavior after. That it's about relationship building, but it's also seeing who's doing it well. And there's an old saying that I like, that success leaves clues, and observe people around you. And that's a growth opportunity, even if this isn't the thing you were excited about, the thing you want to do later in life, maybe not your dream job, but there's an opportunity to learn and grow in wherever you are.
I just wrote down success leaves clues. That's good. Dee, how about you? How would you answer that question?
Yeah, I would echo just about everything that Brent said. I remember getting ready to graduate and just thinking I'd have all this time and I'd, wouldn't be doing schoolwork. So, I would be able to land a job that I really enjoyed, and I would finally feel like I'd have some money to spend and some breathing room. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. So yeah, your first job out of college is definitely not going to be your dream job. And that's okay. Similar to what Brent said, surround yourself with people who you want to emulate, and you'll be on your way. And my husband is also a Hamlin alum. He's a few years older than I am, but we kept saying in those first years out of college, any experience is good experience, and being able to, really adapt to your current circumstances, but also have the vision to look ahead a year, 2 years, 5 years, and just know that where you are currently at is temporary. Everything is temporary, whether it's for me, it was a job in a call center that I really did not enjoy, but it was temporary and it was a stepping stone for me. And I wouldn't have changed my career path for anything now that I have some more hindsight. But yeah, just stick with it, be adaptable, and have some perseverance.
Great. So now the next question we have is, what is one piece of advice that you would offer a graduating senior? So they could be personal, professional, or practical. And I'll hand that one off to Brent to start.
Thanks, Lindy. One thing that I have tried to maintain personally, and I've tried to encourage those that I've supervised in different roles, is just to try to be informed and have that curiosity, lifelong learner. those of us that love and believe in the liberal arts, I truly feel like it matters that if you have that desire to be informed. And the reason I say that is because I think in addition to the self-fulfillment you get from that, I think it's immensely beneficial to you personally and professionally. I've been struck at times where I've observed people who didn't seem to be up on the news or even know what the organization was up to. So, this is a little more difficult now in an age of vastly different, narrow, polarized news sources, but try to find good news sources, be informed of trends and issues and events. And that's the world around you, and it's within the organization. Read the emails that come from the head of the organization. Just understand what are the pressures and priorities. I think it is immensely helpful for networking, makes you a more interesting person in your social life. But I would just say be informed, be curious, and keep learning, even if it isn't directly applicable to a skill you need for your job or something you see a benefit. But just have that breadth of knowledge and awareness of the world around you.
Great. Dave, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I would echo what Brent said. Absolutely. Have that curiosity. And I would go a step and say, when I started working, I kind of put my head down. I was a chemist, and that's what I did. But I found out quickly that there's other people in the organization, other functions. There's, manufacturing, quality, finance, procurement, etc. And so I started asking people in those positions, what do you do? And how does that fit to what I'm doing? And what can I do to make your job easier? Are there things that I'm doing that are hindering you? Are there things that I can do to help? And it was amazing to me. First of all, people like to talk about what they do. Second of all, it was a great education for me. It helped expand my knowledge of what people did within the organization. And thirdly, I developed some relationships where when I needed to lean on someone in that function or have questions, I had a contact. So that was good. So I would encourage new graduates as they get to your position, get settled in, poke around a little bit, see what the other functions are doing and learn from that. It'll serve you well in the long run.
Great. And Miko, how about your one piece of advice?
Yeah, I got a piece of advice after graduating from Hamlin that's always stuck with me, which is be the person mentors seek. I think oftentimes we get a lot of advice, which I think is really important. And I think it's part of, starting your career out well is seeking out mentors, finding people who you admire, who are doing the work that you want to do and learning from them and trying to be an asset to them. But I think the best thing that one can do, especially when they're early on in their career, is be the person who mentors seek. And what I mean by that is someone who really gives it their all, has high expectations for themselves, do their best work. I think oftentimes letting your work show for yourself speaks volumes to a lot of people. So leaning into your Hamlin liberal arts education, showing that natural curiosity, using different mindsets, being able to work with different types of people, and just giving every project you do your all, really trying to do your best work, really trying to be an asset to whatever organization or company that you are. People notice that, and they're more likely to, or they may go out of their way to connect with folks that they may know, to give you opportunities that they think can advance you, to learn more about you. And so I think, not just being the person that seeks out a mentor, but being the person that mentors seek, someone who demonstrates themselves, someone who has great potential, and consistently trying to do your best, having the work speak for you can take you paths you wouldn't even know that. I've done that where I didn't know an opportunity was available, but because someone saw that I did really good work and I tried my all and I asked good questions, those opportunities can kind of find themselves even when you're not seeking them out. So be the person that mentors seek.
Great. Molly, you want to go ahead?
No, that was my fault. You're off.
Okay, sounds good. One more question before we get to the Q&A, and it looks like we have some really good questions coming in there. So keep those coming if one of these discussions sparks a different question that you may have. But my next question is, do you have an example of how you used Hamline's Alumni Network to further professional or personal goals? So whether that was furthering your own goals or helping another Hamline alum further theirs. So going right back to Miko, do you have an experience with that?
Yeah, I have one where I was helped by an alum, and I also have some where I've helped current students as an alumnus myself. When I was graduating or about to graduate from Hamline, the first job I worked was kind of the equivalent of an assistant manager for Target stores. And how I got that role was there was an alum, Tracy, who had that position before. And so I talked to say, hey, like I have this interview for Target. It seems like a really great opportunity. And, you've had this role before, like what can you expect? So she did a really good job of kind of walk me through like, here's what the job it's like, here are the pros, here are the cons, here's what the type of interview questions are like. And I was able to form a relationship with her where she knew my strengths and my areas for improvement. And she gave me a lot of advice, which helped me knock out the park and also helped me understand what I'm getting myself into when I took that role. Not a role that I'm currently in, but definitely took a lot of transferable skills. And that was just kind of a quick email of like, hey, I'd love to get coffee. I think what you'll find is Hamline alums love to connect with current students. I think it's something that we all enjoy. Anytime I get an email, I'm like, yes, of course, it's me. So that's one example. I was helped as a student. I would say more recently, I've been to a few of the etiquette dinners before the world kind of paused and changed. And I was able to connect with some current students who were interested in working in student affairs or just higher education in general. What does the grad school program look like? What are the different opportunities and avenues that are there? How can one tap into their Hamline experience and use that to work in different varieties of institutions? So I've been able to assist a few students who were currently at Hamline with that career path. And I love it. I enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun. And to make it more Hamline specific is always fun. So those are some examples.
Chris, how about you? What are some of your alumni experiences?
Well, I'll use an experience that I actually was a mentor for a student at Hamline. I was doing an improv session at Hamline for a luncheon as a keynote speaker. And after the session, a student came up to me, explained that they had looked at my LinkedIn profile and was very familiar with my background and kind of my journey. And she had a lot of interest in similar things, right? So she had done her homework. She had put the connections together. And she asked me if we could sit down and have some coffee. I said, sure, absolutely. So we actually really started digging into what she thought she wanted to do. And as I told her about some of that, I think her thoughts changed a little bit, right? And so we refined the direction she really wanted to go. And then I said, well, no, our next step is we have to deal with your LinkedIn because your LinkedIn isn't saying the right message, right? So we took that discussion and we turned it into a LinkedIn working session, and we continuously modified her LinkedIn. And I hope that from there, that got her the physical presence she needed out on the web. And then we started talking about, well, how do you interview for those kinds of positions, right? What kinds of words do you have to use? How do you find out what words to use? And so we really talked a lot about using the right wording to capture the right experience. So I hope that all of that contributed to the role that she currently is in. But I will say that it's really important to not just tap resources when you need help. If you need help, it's probably already a little late in some respects to start building your network. You need to build your network now, and you need to continuously maintain it. So even after you start your first job, your networking doesn't stop, your networking starts ramping up, right? Because there's always something next. So I would say always look for those opportunities to engage people at different types of events or whatever it might be on campus or electronically or whatever it might be. To Brent's point, I know you have a very different experience than what we had. But then in all honesty, having recently changed positions after 27 years with Thomson Reuters and going to CHS, I will say I had a big awakening, right? Because it had changed a lot while I was living the life of the journey through Thomson Reuters. When I came out and was trying to do something different, I had to learn some of those experiences. So it is really important to keep your network up. It's really important to do your homework. They will help you but it isn't their job to do it for you. So you have to know what you want. You have to know what you need to do to ask the right questions and do the work that they suggest. Otherwise, it doesn't really pay off, right? And always be thinking about how you're going to contribute. Networking is a two-way relationship. It's not a one-way relationship. So you may think, well, I don't have anything to give, right? I'm the student here and I'm looking for some help. The reality is, you know people, you've had experiences, you have an expertise based on what you studied. There's a whole bunch of things, right? Your connections have connections. And that's something you should give back. So you should never leave a networking session without saying, what can I do for you? And then at the end, always say thank you. There is nothing worse than somebody giving their time to you and you don't stop to say thank you when it's over. So I would use those cautions. And actually, she and I had quite a bit of conversation about that because there were times when we had done a session and I didn't get a thank you back, and I'd respond and I'd say, that's not acceptable, right? You owe me a thank you. And it wasn't because I wanted it myself. It was because I wanted her to understand that out in the real world, she needs to say thank you so that the next person will want to mentor her, to Miko's point.
Thank you for that answer, Chris. And we will hand it over to Joe next.
So my experience with this is, as everybody has kind of talked about, I think it's really important to build relationships, and networking is very important. And I like to think about it in maybe a non-traditional sense where, you know, it's not a quid pro quo. It's really connecting with somebody. And as Chris said, figuring out how you can help each other. I like to think of these people in my network as my friends, even though Chris probably doesn't consider me a friend. Just kidding. She definitely likes me. Did good there. But so my experience is that one of my really good friends from undergrad, I was working in the governor's office as my first job, and a position opened up, and there was no question in my mind that Yassine was going to be right for this job. I'd known him a little bit before college, but we'd done a lot of things together at Hamline. And so, you know, when this position opened up, I knew he was going to be the right person because of all the things that we'd done together at Hamline. You know, during high school, he went to my high school. We like played basketball together, but that wasn't enough for me to say, you should come work with me at my job. It was being on the Model United Nations team together. It was doing all of these different class activities together. So really, you know, you can lean on your classmates. You know, Yassine didn't know about this job. I reached out to him. You should consider reaching out to your classmates if you think they'd be a good fit. And I think that that's a really important thing to keep in mind when you're at a job. Two is how to get other people like you there. I just did this recently as well in my current position, where another friend of mine, you know, needed a job or was looking for a new opportunity. And I knew that he was both my friend and somebody who could contribute to the firm. And so, you know, making those connections, maintaining those connections, and then capitalizing on opportunities like that will really go to show that you're a team player. You can identify people who are good in these positions, and then relying on the network of alums that you have and your classmates is really important to that process.
All right, I think let's start we've got lots of really good questions in the Q&A. And before I start posing questions to our panelists, I just want to mention, if we don't get to all of the questions that are in the Q&A, our apologies. But if we don't, you are very welcome, and you're welcome to do this if another question comes up after the fact. You can email alum@hamline.edu. I'll read your email. Lindsay might read your email, but you can really, you know, send questions if you're not sure where else to ask, or if you don't have the right venue at the exact right moment to ask a question. You can always email us and we will turn to these folks or others to help you answer. So keep that in mind. All right, folks, here's a good, well, they're all good, you guys. From your experience in your positions, what new challenges have been presented from the pandemic? So that's a pretty broad question, but I wonder if you could put it in the context of even networking or career growth. What challenges do you see the pandemic has presented itself, and have you seen any good strategies of how to overcome? And I'll let any of you jump in if you like.
For me, as a somewhat new employee at my law firm, I'm sorry if I cut somebody off. I saw a microphone go back on. But it was really important, sort of still as a somewhat new employee. I'd been there for, about a year, but, making sure that people remember that you're still working there and that you're available to do work. And it's really important to do that a lot of times in a written format. For me, as an attorney, it's sending out an email to all the shareholders saying, I have some additional bandwidth to take on work. If you have anything, please let me know. And just reminding people that you're there, willing to work, willing to connect. And so being able to leverage your writing skills that hopefully you've developed through your liberal arts degree will really come in handy, especially in these coming months as we transition back to work. And in some cases, in some professions, in-person work, we are transitioning either back into the office hybrid style or not going back into the office, in which writing is going to be extremely important.
I'll piggyback on what Joe said. And so I've worked in a number of different finance roles, but the ability, even though a happy day for me usually has an Excel spreadsheet, being able to communicate is hugely important. As I think about what the pandemic has done, Joe is absolutely right. So much of communication is different now, and it needs to be more deliberate, more thoughtful, because there are no chance encounters in the building. But the ability to write and communicate, or even just figure out what's the right communication venue. Is it a Zoom meeting? Is it a phone call? Is it written? How long? What attachments? What visuals? And having an ability to think about communications in a different way has been important. But I think the other thing that's gone with the pandemic is just an ability to think about priorities of our functions and how do we do them differently, and being able to handle the disruption. And I think that's, again, I come back to the liberal arts as a way to be able to deal with the ambiguity, find new ways to problem solve, focus on getting things done in new ways. And in my group, none of us had worked remotely prior to March 16th of last year. And the fact that we haven't really missed a beat has been immensely enlightening. That this really informs what the future looks like, because none of us thought this was even feasible. And we turned on a dime and things have maintained high quality work. And that's been really important. But I think the leaning on the skills and being able to be adaptable and communicate, like Joe talked about, I think was really important, and it's been a learning experience.
Anyone else want to chime in on that? Has anybody hired or started a new role in a remote environment?
I recently onboarded, or we're kind of in the process of onboarding a new team member, which is, it's hard. I feel for the guy, but we, as a team, we've really tried to rally around, I take Mondays with him. So him and I, we have 2 meetings. We start Monday and we end Monday together via video. So we have a team member allocated to assisting him each day of the week. And then if he has any questions between our morning or afternoon meeting, he comes to me on Mondays, and to another person on Tuesdays, to another person on Wednesday. And also we've done a couple virtual happy hours. So, at 3:30, so it's not over, we have people in all 3 time zones, but 3:30 seems to be okay for East Coast people, and a little bit late enough for Central Standard people to, kind of block their time. And then also we did a virtual team building day, or half a day, I should say. And there's a lot of resources out there where you can do virtual team building things. So for that one, we got these boxes sent to us, and we we made a little succulent terrarium to have on our desk. And then another thing is we made like little coasters for our desk since we're staying at home. So we've tried to get creative because we do a lot of fun things when we're in the office as a team. We usually go out to lunch a couple times a month, but we've had to get creative. So I think it's working. But yeah, like I said, I feel for, it's hard. Who knows when we'll be able to actually meet him in person too, but we're trying to make sure that he feels supported and that, he does not need to sit home alone at his home and feel lost.
Culture can transcend the pandemic, right?
Yes.
Workplace environment culture. Go ahead, Miko.
I was just going to say, I think, kind of echoing what a lot's been said here, I think, we kind of been flying the plane while we're also building the plane. Like there's just so many things we have to do in terms to adapt. And I think that liberal arts education kind of helps you with that. Yes, you have your degree, but you're also, it's because of liberal arts, you're learning how to adapt and how to kind of move as the world changes. I think I echo a lot of the challenges that people have said here. I do think with all the chaos that has created some opportunities too. I think one of the things I've noticed is, and things in networking or connecting with people who live in different parts of the world, different time zones, things like that, there was a lot more resistance, or it seemed like, oh, they live in California, or they live all the way over here, or like a phone call just seems like a lot, or like coffee's the best way to do it. But now that that's just off the table, I feel like I've been able to connect with more people from all over the places. People understand video conference. It seems like in terms of like connecting with people virtually, or at least like connecting with other folks, more people are aware of how that works. So I think that's something that's been kind of fun. For my job in particular, we've had to adapt like everyone else. And there's some things that we think we may stick and continue to do post-pandemic. So we've done like a socially distanced outside events. We did a coaster making thing as an event with students as well that people really liked. And we're like, we could continue doing this in a world where we can be physically together. So I think that's one of the small silver linings I've been able to see too.
Here's a next question. Do you feel like your specific degree or degrees really helped you get where you are today? And I know some of you, Dave, you were a chemistry major who went into chemistry. Others, the path is different, but talk about your specific degree and how that opened doors for you.
Okay, I'll go first since I'm the very general psychology degree. I feel like one thing that I felt kind of lost after college because I realized my degree wasn't specific enough to where, I was going to be a chemist, or I was a business degree looking to get into the finance industry. And actually my goal was to go to physical therapy school. So I did a lot of psychology and had a biology minor with that goal in mind. And then of course, when I got accepted into some PT schools, I decided that is not what I wanted to do and turned down PT school offers, and then was kind of like, well, what do I do with this psychology degree now? I was on like a one career path mindset throughout my all 4 years at Hamline. And then all of a sudden I woke up and decided I didn't want to be a physical therapist anymore. And I still don't regret that decision. I will say that looking back, it was the right decision for me, but now, this year marks 10 years post-graduation of Hamline. But now that I've worked a few jobs, I've been in a couple different companies. I mean, I work in healthcare, but there's people on my team who have, business degrees, or some even transition from being teachers. So they have education degrees, and I have a psychology degree. I think the biggest thing is, if you have whether you have I'll say a broad degree or a specific degree, it is up to you to figure out kind of what you want to do. And that's going to be some trial and error. But I think, sorry, mail's coming. It's a very exciting time at our house. I know. We have a rescue puppy that gets very anxious too. So here we are trying to survive working from home. Anyway, so I think whether Miko touched on this a little bit earlier, like translating your experience and your skills. So, I mean, if you look at my career path, it's been, from over here to over there to, but as I mentioned earlier, any experience is good experience, being able to adapt and then again, translate the skills you learned in your current role or past role and speak to that into the next role you want to get. And network with people if there's somebody who's where you want to be, set up coffee with them, especially if they're a Hamline alum. And almost everybody is more than happy to connect with how they ended up where they are, what they would recommend. So yeah, sorry, I got a little distracted there, but that's what I would say on degrees and kind of feeling lost with a very broad degree after graduation.
So, I'll jump in and give an answer to that as well. I graduated with a degree in chemistry. I thought my dream job was going to be analyzing chemical compounds that people sent to me. They'd pass them under the door. I would do my thing, put a piece of paper out, and they'd get that. And that's not the way it worked out for me. I was actually a developmental chemist at 3M and developed products. And throughout my career, though, one of the things that did change is that I had an opportunity. They said, we'd like someone to work with Department of Motor Vehicles and correctional industries, prisons, because we sell reflective sheeting that makes license plates, and we'd like to kind of make that a little bigger business. So I'm going from wanting to be behind a closed door, analyzing chemical compounds, to now going into prisons and working with prisoners. So that was a little bit of a change. But I'll tell you what the chemistry degree did, and Ole Rundquist, who was a professor when I was at Hamline, said, I'm going to teach chemistry, but what I'm really teaching you is how to solve problems. And so he said, we're going to do that through chemistry, but really what I want to teach you is how to solve problems. That played out well when I had to work with Department of Motor Vehicles in different states and correctional industries. Also, I would say that the liberal arts background gave me a great, it gave me a background to work with those groups and bring them together. So you may think that Department of Motor Vehicles, who puts the license plate information out there, and the correctional industry who actually makes those, they'd be talking well all the time. Not the case. So in a lot of states, we were kind of facilitators to help get those two organizations talking. And so, 1979, when I graduate, if you would have asked me, would I even be close to doing that stuff with DMVs and prisons? Not a chance. But I'll tell you, it was a great opportunity to take, and I learned a heck of a lot from that. It was extremely rewarding. And I have good prison stories too. So we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, Dave, I agree with you. I've taken an interesting journey since fourth grade. I wanted to do criminal defense litigation. And so I put the blinders on. From fourth grade on, I went straight on to law school, right? So in between there, I knew I needed to get some kind of degree. So I was like, well, international business with Spanish sounds good to me. So that's what I did in undergraduate, went straight on to law school. Got into law school in the first semester, I took crim law and went, holy cats, I'm ethically going to burn out before I can afford to make it in this part of the business, right? Because I realized that I would have to defend people I didn't believe in before I could pick and choose the ones I wanted to defend. And I couldn't figure out how to separate that in my mind. And I believe that everyone deserves the right to fair representation. And I didn't know if I could do that. So wowzer. I sat in that first semester of law school and went, what the heck do I do now? Do I drop out and get an MBA? What do I do, right? So I decided, nope, I'm going to stick with law school, because law school, much like liberal arts, is more a way of thinking than it is anything to do with the law. There's a mystery I've unwound for all of you. Lawyers learn how to think in law school. They don't memorize laws or anything like that. So I got done with law school and I thought, okay, now what, right? I thought I was going to do some commercial real estate, but the market had fallen through. And so I found myself in a position where all of them were practicing bankruptcy because they didn't have a market to practice in. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll go to work for what was at the time West Publishing, and I'll help other lawyers learn to do research that we didn't maybe learn as well as we should have in law school. So I took a great journey through 27 years at West Publishing, which later became Thomson Reuters, which let me work around the globe in a lot of different capacities. It let me do product design. It let me do public relations. It let me do a whole bunch of stuff that I thought I would never have the opportunity to do. And the last 10 years was really kind of an accumulation of all of that. And I did a lot of mergers and acquisitions integration work, right? Because it is all aspects of a business you really have to understand in order to do integration. And then unfortunately, I was sitting in the wrong seat when one of the large layoffs happened 27 years into my career there. And the quarter that I left, 2,500 other of my colleagues left the company. And I went, holy cats, I thought I was going to retire there. Now what? So I decided to take a sabbatical and do things I always wanted to do. And I did stand-up comedy and improv comedy and all the things I always wanted to do. And my mother is like, okay, I am really confused. So far we've done international business in Spanish. We did something for 27 years. I didn't understand what you did, but you didn't practice law. And now we're a comedian. So I don't quite understand the journey here, Chris. And then I started really speaking with groups on how you can use the skills that comedy teaches you to be more effective business people, lawyers, collaborators, innovators, and it put everything together. And so she actually came to one of my sessions and said, oh my God, I think I got it. I understand how this is all coming together now. And then I woke up April 2 years ago and said, oh, wow, I'm really ready to go back to corporate America. And I found my home at CHS, which is a completely different industry. But what I really like about transformation and continuous improvement is it is all about the same things that got me to law school. There's always a way to do it. You just have to think hard enough and look at things in a different way to make them connect. And so I think that's really kind of, in some respects, the story that I just told you is what we've all talked about today, right? It's about finding the things that interest you. It's about transferable skills, to Dee's point. It's about trying different things in different ways, to Dave's point. I mean, there's so many components to that. But I would say that one of the things I would tell you is don't let your perception of who or what you should be get in the way of what you can be.
Here is another question, kind of going a little bit different direction, although we've alluded to it certainly. What should a LinkedIn profile look like? So Chris, you already talked about that a bit. I wonder if others have examples from their own LinkedIn profile, something that you made a change or advice that somebody gave you or things you've seen that doesn't work. And actually, if I can find it here, there was another question about LinkedIn that would follow along. How important is it? And does it matter on the field? Anybody want to take one of those LinkedIn questions?
I'll just say, while it is categorized as social media, I would not consider it that from an approach standpoint. It's really, a public place where your resume has been posted. And while I haven't had to use it very much for myself or for hiring purposes, there have been people who, have expressed interest in working at the places where I've worked, and I've looked at their LinkedIn, and if there's an issue, I immediately think, I can't put my name behind this guy or gal. I can't, support them because, their public image on a place that is not social media doesn't use professional language or, doesn't present the person in the way that, I would want to work with that person. So I think it's really important to make sure that, as everybody here said, what you're putting forward, because it could be one of the first things that people look at when they're searching you. Make sure that it's saying, I'm a professional, I know how to present myself, and I'd be a really great representative of your company or government entity in my case.
I would say along the same line of that, keep it clean, keep it professional, and also keep it updated. I have had several people reach out, you know, whether it's they saw an open position at my current company, and I'll do the same thing that Joe does. I'll go to their profile, and if they haven't updated it in 5 years, they don't even have a profile picture. So I will say an important component is having a professional profile picture. It doesn't have to be a headshot. I mean, mine is just a crop picture, but it's so keep it updated. So it's always easy to look at, you know, somebody can look at it and know exactly where you're at in your career, what your previous experience is. I actually pulled mine up while we're looking at it, but you know, education, take the time to fill out what skills you have so people can endorse you. And if you do go in, there's an interest section. If you do go in and want to select like what you're interested in or companies you want to follow, again, make sure it aligns with your professional interests. Don't use this is not Facebook. This is not Instagram. I get really turned off I always say I'm the worst millennial ever, but I get really turned off when people use LinkedIn as kind of like their Facebook and they're constantly sharing status updates about things that are not related to their professional career. Maybe that's a little more old school of me. But I would keep it professional, I'd keep it clean, I'd keep it updated. Those were the 3 things I would add.
I actually have a piece of advice that somebody shared with me once, or something that they didn't actually share with me, but they exhibited, that goes back to what Chris said earlier on about even as a student or a very recent grad, people have things to offer. But I worked with a colleague once, and actually worked with a student once, who after the project was completed, they put a recommendation on my LinkedIn profile. And at the time I was, you know, it wasn't something I had expected, but it was very well written. It was, and you have an opportunity to review it before it goes onto your thing. It was well written. It was complimentary. It was very professional. And when I commented, this was years ago, when I commented and said, thank you for it, they said, well, yep, that's one way that I can say thank you, and I can sort of repay what you've done working on this project with me. And I have tried, not always successfully, I've tried to keep that in mind, because I think it is, you know, endorsements that are well written, that are relevant to what is on. They had looked at my profile, they knew what made sense. That was a really wonderful thank you.
I think to explicitly answer the question, I don't think it matters what field you're in, what degree you have, and if somebody thinks differently, like, please speak up and correct me. But I do think a LinkedIn, anytime you submit a resume, the first thing you're going to get a recruiter notification that they've looked at your LinkedIn. I was laid off in early 2018, and I was doing a lot of applications. And every time I submitted an application, like almost within 24, 48 hours, I had an anonymous notification that a recruiter looked at my profile. So I don't think it matters what degree or what field you're in, because it's one way that they can identify you and put a face to your resume. Or I think it's also kind of like an accountability factor too.
Can I just give like one quick thing about LinkedIn? They now have a feature. So if you're like me and you have a unique name, there's now a feature where you can like record your name on there as well. I know sometimes like people like to be like, oh, hi, Micah, or so it just kind of takes up that awkwardness or something like that. So that's a cool feature that's there. And I use LinkedIn more as like a news site. So I just like follow companies or like schools or things like that more so than a promotional piece, but it's a great way to kind of be in the know, similar to what Brent was saying earlier about just being informed about what a dog company's organization will post their news.
I'll also mention that the Career Development Center has done a few Leo lectures for us, and you can find them on the alumni website. And I'm forgetting which ones right now, but we can follow up with those who are here with us today. But there are a few where they speak about your LinkedIn profile, but then also how to search alums on LinkedIn. And I am just looking at the time, and we're about to run out of time. And we still had some really good questions here. And this is kind of a risky move, but I'm going to end on kind of a harder one to answer. As a creative writing student, I'm told that there really isn't a first job outside of getting lucky with a paid internship. How do you support yourself before you get a job in your field? And how do you deal with the waiting or uncertainty, especially in a creative field? Does anybody, and I think we maybe have time for 1 or 2 responses, does anybody have any advice about the waiting and the uncertainty? Oh, thanks, Miko. See you.
I'll really quickly speak to, so my plan was to wait to go to PT school. So in the summer months, I worked 2 to 3 jobs to save money before I went to PT school. And then of course, as I mentioned earlier, I decided not to go to PT school. So then it was like, oh crap, and now I need a job with benefits. And, you know, I need something more growth, growth forward versus working a couple. So, I mean, in the waiting, I would say do whatever work you can to pay your bills. I mean, I was a PCA, I worked at Caribou Coffee, I worked as a yoga instructor all at the same time, just because I had bills that need to be paid. And then I did the same thing when I realized I wasn't going to PT school. And if you can find, I can't speak to the creative side, but if you can find something that allows you to have a creative outlet. But I mean, really at some point, especially right after college, I feel like it really comes down to just being able to pay the bills while you're spending some energy finding like that big break, or, you know, something a little more stable and aligned with what you're looking for.
My experience right after college was a little bit different. I was pretty privileged in the sense that my dad was a college professor at a different university that's a little more purple than ours. But so I, you know, there's a tuition remission, so I didn't come out of college with a lot of debt, I was really, you know, thankful for that. And I was able to, you know, take an unpaid internship for the summer after I graduated. And I decided that I was going to take the opportunity to take is it the GRE now? I don't remember. I didn't use it, and the LSAT. So that I, you know, because, you know, that summer right after you graduate, it looks okay to have, you know, not your full-time job. So if you can, you know, have a job, if you need to, you know, pay bills, obviously that's number one. If you can do that while also taking the opportunity to do something that would come in handy later. I didn't end up applying to law school for 3 years. But I had that already done. I didn't have to take time out of my job that then I got the September after I graduated to be able to study. So, you know, if you have that opportunity and ability, I would encourage people to do that as well. But again, just a different experience. It's not for everybody, and I recognize that.
All right, you guys, we're just about the end of time. I'm guessing some of our participants are going to jump on another Zoom, whether it's a meeting for some of you or a 1250 class, maybe for some of our students. So panelists, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and really appreciate your thoughtfulness. And I trust that if I send a few questions your way, I'm sure that you'd be happy to answer them for our panelists or for our attendees too. So those of you, if we didn't get to your question, and we have the transcript of questions, so I'll go back and look and see if there are any answers that I can send you or track down for you. But don't forget to watch your email. We will send you a text sticker for participating, and please know that you can reach out to alum@hamline.edu for any support that we can offer you. Lindsay, is there anything that I was supposed to say or we were supposed to say at the end that I'm forgetting?
I don't think so. I think you covered it. Just thanks again, everyone, for being here, and panelists. Awesome answers. I know I learned something. I think Molly probably learned a thing or two as well. So
Yep. Continuous learning. All right. Thanks so much, you guys. Happy spring.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.